Hey, toy fans and toy professionals. Welcome back to Toy Trends with me, Scott, ToyGuru Neitlich. I've been in the toy industry for over 20 years, and today we're going to talk about toys and Comic-Con. San Diego Comic-Con, that is. You've heard of this thing, right? The thing that takes over San Diego once a year and causes people to dress up as world-devouring super monsters and walk the street. Yeah, that show. Well, whether your favorite thing at the show is, casually strolling the uncrowded aisles and having tons of human contact. I mean, how in the world are you going to stay 6 feet away from people at this show? I have no idea. Let's hope the cart situation resolves quickly, right? So, whether you like walking the floor, whether you're there for Hall H with a hope to see a celebrity or a group of celebrities, or be the first person to see a new trailer before it's on YouTube in 24 hours, or you're there for cosplay because you like dressing up as Spider-Man, or you are Spider-Man and you're hoping to just walk around a show and not have anyone recognize you. Hugh Jackman did that as Wolverine one year? Anyway, that's a video for another time. Or you're there for the toys, and that's me. I was always there for the toys first and foremost. And not just the reveals, but also those super limited edition, hard to get, awesome toys that you could only get at San Diego Comic-Con until they're on eBay 24 hours later. And every year, tons of companies put out tons of toys that are quote-unquote exclusive to San Diego Comic-Con. And as with anything that lots of companies do, there's definitely going to be companies that do it better and companies that do it worse. So the question I want to address in this video is, what makes a good Comic-Con exclusive, or a Comic-Con toy, action figure specifically, because that's the category I love the most. And I do have a unique perspective on this, because I'm actually someone who has been an attendee at Comic-Con. I have been an exhibitor at Comic-Con, and even in recent years, due to actually having published comic books and written work and stuff, I've actually made it onto the coveted professional list at Comic-Con. So I've come to the show from three very different angles, and there's not that many people who have kind of this perspective. And I think this perspective is unique and deserves a video. And hey, I have a YouTube channel, so why not? So, as an example, I stood in line to get a raffle ticket to buy this action figure from Mattel for the Motu brand. And I was at Mattel designing this toy to sell at Comic-Con, without raffle tickets, I must add, for Comic-Con. So that's kind of what I mean by having a unique perspective, having both spent the time and money to get to Comic-Con, and having been sent to Comic-Con by companies to promote their items. Now, I know things have changed. It's a lot harder to get into Comic-Con these days than it was 10, 20 years ago. When I was an attendee, I would just drive down from Orange County, and you would just kind of walk right into the show. You could buy a ticket. There were no lines. I mean, isn't it amazing to think about that? You just literally could drive down, park, not have a ticket, walk up, buy your ticket, and go into the show for the day. And that's what we used to do. Fast forward to today, and yeah, tickets to Comic-Con are a little bit different. It's not exactly a show up and walk in experience, which that's a YouTube video for another day. Today, we're going to talk about exclusives and what makes a good exclusive and what makes a not so good exclusive. And there's a lot of different factors, but I kind of drill it down to two main things. And again, while I do have credentials, this is my opinion, so take it for what it will. My first credential is I think it should be an item that doesn't fit. That does not fit into a regular line. And I'll get into more on that in a sec. The other thing I think it should do is it should help complete a full set. And if you've done both of those things, I think you've made a really good exclusive. All right, what do I mean by that? So by doesn't fit, I'm talking about retail. And all of retail goes by what's called a planogram, meaning toys are sold based on retail space and need to be designed from a packaging standpoint to fit into a very specific space. Retail aisles are divided up by footage: 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, etc., etc. 4 foot comes after 3 foot, right? So Sometimes you can get incremental space, like an end cap, but beyond that, you're basically limited to the amount of footage a store is going to give you. And you have to design your toys and design your packaging to fit specifically into a retail planogram. I'm going to do a video about planograms in the future. So let's look at a Comic-Con exclusive that doesn't fit. Lobo. I did a video on Lobo. You can see the link here. But why I think he worked well as a Comic-Con exclusive was for a few reasons. One, the packaging was bigger than a standard package. He was a larger character. Two, at the time we made Lobo, we weren't allowed to sell Lobo at retail. I know that things have changed, and now you can buy Lobo in the 4-year-old AIM Imagine X line, but back when we did Lobo, he was restricted. He was not allowed to be sold at retail because he was very, very adult and violent. So he was a good example of a figure that didn't work at retail for both size and content, but he also helped complete a collection. So really, Comic-Con became a distribution angle to get a character out there that you couldn't otherwise sell. Let's look at another example, and I'm going to do a couple that I worked on. This was the 75th DC Starro pack. Again, there was no way to get Starro out there at retail. He wasn't going to fit in a standard retail package. But at Comic-Con, you could design whatever package was needed to get him out. And it was a great publicity thing because you could tie it to DC's 75th and have a whole marketing campaign around that. So it worked for a lot of reasons. It completed a collection, it didn't fit at retail, and it had a marketing spin to it. All right, let's look at a non-retail item. So let's look at Hero, a Masters of the Universe Classics item. So this one, same kind of principle. It didn't fit with the regular line in the sense that even though this was an online line, and we weren't restricted in the packaging sense, all of the figures we had done previous to Hero were main A-list Masters of the Universe characters. Hero was a huge stretch in a different direction. He was based on a figure that was never made in the vintage line. And we even found a way to make him special for the show. Underneath the armor was the San Diego Comic-Con logo. And you didn't even have to see that logo if you didn't want to, but you knew it was special if you got it at the show. Now, we sold the very same figure online, but when you bought him online, he didn't come with that San Diego Comic-Con badge under the armor, which again, you couldn't see. It was just, there for people. So you had the bragging rights that you got at a Comic-Con, it was available to people not at the show, and it helped complete a collection that otherwise at this point was only doing A-list figures. So it basically brought a figure that didn't fit into what had been done previously. Does that make sense? Now, obviously not all Comic-Con figures are going to please everyone, and there's always going to be issues, and we'll get into Gleekgate, quote-unquote, in a future video. Let's look at some items I didn't work on. I know we're still sticking with Mattel here, but we'll get to some Hasbro stuff. So this was Mattel's Batman 80th pack. This worked great, again, because it complemented your Batman collection, and it offered figures that wouldn't work at retail, not just from a packaging standpoint, but in this case from a deco standpoint. We tried for years to get Zebra Stripe Batman into the line. Bill Bedicke and I had worked on for so long, and it wasn't like Lobo where the character was restricted. This was a deco issue. He had so much deco because every one of those stripes had to be painted that we just couldn't afford to get him into the main line. There was just no way to do it. Bill had this figure sitting on his desk, at least the prototype, I mean, honestly, for years and years. And when I saw that they were finally releasing at Comic-Con, I sent him a note, and I just said, "Hey, congratulations!" And he smiled because he got that we had tried to do this for years and years, and Comic-Con wound up being the only way because he was just too deco intensive for retail. Another example, the Slim Jim Macho Man. So you can't sell toys with food at retail, but you can at Comic-Con. This was actually a toy that I proposed for years at Mattel and kept getting rejected, and it definitely made me laugh when I saw that they did it like the year after I left Mattel. But hey, good for them. It's still an awesome toy. Here's another example that's slightly different, the Wonder Woman Invisible Jet. So this one works at Comic-Con really well for some other reasons. It's a package-only execution, but it's not expensive. It was $5. And so for the gag of having an empty package, which By the way, for the record, Hot Wheels totally stole from us from the launch pack. They saw what we were doing with Invisible Kid, and they totally stole this, and they got theirs to market first. And I was like, no, that was our idea to do an empty package. But I digress. So this was sold for only $5, so it was kind of like an impulse buy, and it was great. It was a main characters, main ship, or main vehicle, and, it was fun. It was a fun $5 item. All right, so going over to the other side of the aisle to Hasbro, let's look at some of their items. So this Luke set was just a package example as well, but all these figures got released as is at retail a year later. Versus some of their Black Series items, they tended to plus them up with extra accessories. And this works sometimes. It works when the accessory isn't 100% needed. So in this case, Carbonite Han is kind of an A-list Han version that everybody wants. I mean, Carbonite Han literally represents a figure that was collected in the content. So, of course, collectors want to collect, just like Jabba. So having this only be available at Comic-Con, a little bit like, rubbing dirt in, I think, people's faces. Versus a better execution might be this Obi-Wan that came with the hologram and the table. A cool accessory, but not as required for collectors. So if you missed it, you don't feel as bad. And I think one way to solve this with the bonus accessory tactic is to just sort of make it available to everyone, but not quite immediately, maybe a few months after the show, which is kind of what Hasbro does. Because what this does is it preserves bragging rights, which is why people are buying Comic-Con exclusives. That's the emotional connection to the exclusive, is bragging rights. So if you give Comic-Con attendees a window to own it, it pays off the time and investment they spent getting to the show, while still allowing non-show fans to get the item. It's tricky. There's really no one way of doing this. But I think that overall, finding figures that don't fit in with a collection, do fit in with a collection but don't work at retail for one reason or another, or can bring an extra accessory to fans that's not 100% necessary but is cool, is a good way to do an exclusive. So what do you guys think? This was my opinion. It was based on my experience. I'm not always right, but I am full of opinions. And if you like my opinions, please subscribe, because I have a lot more videos coming for a lot more toy lines. And once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we're going to unleash some really cool stuff. So subscribe today.